It is 3 in the morning. A sudden noise snaps the eyes open. There, slumped in the corner of the dark bedroom, sits a figure. Shoulders hunched, head tilted, staring directly at the bed. Breath catches in the throat. The heart rate doubles. But that terrifying intruder is not a trick of the shadows. It is a fully rendered, high-definition hallucination generated entirely by the visual cortex before the eyes have even finished collecting light. Today we are going to see how the brain actively constructs the room around you from the inside out. Consider the physical reality of the skull. It is a sealed bone vault. Pitch black inside. The spongy organ locked within has never seen sunlight, a coffee cup, or a pile of laundry. It relies entirely on a trickle of electrical pulses traveling down a damp cable to guess what exists beyond the bone. The eyes do not act like video cameras streaming a live feed. They are terribly slow, remarkably faulty sensors. To survive, the brain cannot afford to wait for them to paint a complete picture. It has to guess. It hallucinates a continuous simulation of reality and projects it forward, only using the eyes to occasionally catch mistakes. When the room is pitch black, the eyes send almost nothing back. The visual error correction system essentially goes offline. The brain is left alone in the dark with its own paranoid simulation. It takes a few loose visual cues, the curve of a collar, the bulk of a coat draped over a chair, and aggressively fills in the blanks based on what might be dangerous. If you are fascinated by the hidden machinery running this simulation in your head, take a moment to subscribe and like the video, because the story of how we see gets far stranger the deeper we go. Relying on biological sensors presents a massive physical problem. Light hits the retina instantly, but the chemistry of turning that light into an electrical spark is sluggish. Then that spark must travel down the optic nerve. It passes through the thalamus, finally reaching the visual processing centers at the very back of the head. The time this entire journey takes creates a biological lag. A delay severe enough that, if the nervous system waited for the final image to arrive, a fast-moving object would have already struck the face. Catching a thrown set of keys should be impossible. A tennis player waiting for a serve tracks a sphere moving over 100 miles per hour. If they swung it where their eyes reported the ball to be, they would swing it empty air. The visual data is entirely too old by the time it reaches consciousness. So the mind cheats. It builds a model of the physics involved, calculates the trajectory, and paints a fake image of the ball slightly ahead of its actual position in space. The player hits a predicted ghost. This predictive coding is running constantly. As someone reads a book or walks across a room, the nervous system is not passively recording the present. It is broadcasting a highly educated guess about the immediate future. If what we see is largely a simulation projected from within, just how much of this current moment is completely made up? Look at the physical structure of the optic nerve itself. It contains roughly 1 million individual nerve fibers. That sounds substantial until compared to a standard smartphone camera, which easily captures tens of millions of pixels every single fraction of a second. 100 milliseconds. That is the exact delay between light hitting the eye and the brain finishing its processing. 1/10 of a second. The biological cable simply lacks the bandwidth to stream reality in high definition. Much of the scene in front of a person is blurry, colorless, or entirely missing due to the blind spot. Yet the world feels seamless. The edges of a desk look sharp. The sky appears a continuous, unbroken blue. The visual cortex patches these massive holes with memories, assumptions, and raw guesswork. We live our entire lives 1/10 of a second in the past. To compensate for living in history, the mind generates a phantom present. Sometimes, the simulation slips. The error correction fails. Imagine carrying heavy boxes up a familiar flight of stairs. The legs pump in a rhythmic, mindless sequence. The brain has mapped this specific staircase 1,000 times. It predicts the distance to the next tread, the resistance of the wood, the angle of the knee. Then comes the top of the stairs. The feet expect flat ground, but the mind miscounted. The foot steps down into empty space for a fraction of a second, or perhaps it hits the floor too early. A violent jolt shoots up the spine. The stomach drops. That physical shock is the feeling of reality colliding with a broken simulation. For a microsecond, the internal model of the world completely failed to match the incoming data. The nervous system throws an emergency override, forcing intense conscious attention back to the physical limbs. Predictive coding shatters, and raw, slow reality rushes in to replace it. This exact mechanism explains the bedroom at 3 in the morning. The waking mind is suddenly thrust from sleep into a low-light environment. The visual cortex scrambles to orient itself. Sparse signals trickle in from the dilated pupils. A dark mass rests on a wooden chair. A lighter patch floats near the top that could be a face. Evolution did not design the visual system to be perfectly accurate. It designed it to keep primates alive in a forest full of predators. A false positive, mistaking a shadow for a leopard, costs a brief spike of adrenaline. A false negative, mistaking a leopard for a shadow, costs a life. The brain plays the survival odds. It forcibly organizes the ambiguous shapes of the laundry pile into the most threatening logical configuration. It paints a man in the room. It gives him shoulders, a head, an intense stare. Adrenaline floods the bloodstream. The body prepares to fight or run, all based on a picture drawn by an organ that has never seen light. Or consider a passenger on a small boat, staring at the horizon to avoid seasickness. The inner ear feels the rolling waves. The eyes see a completely stable wooden deck. The sensory inputs violently disagree, and the simulation starts tearing at the seams. Nausea is the body responding to an impossible reality. When the brain cannot reconcile its predictions with its sensors, it assumes it has been poisoned and tries to purge the toxin. Back in the bedroom, the hand reaches out. The fingers find the bedside lamp switch. A sharp click. Light floods the space. Photons bombard the retina by the billions. The optic nerve fires a massive, undeniable stream of error-correcting data straight to the back of the skull. Instantly, the man in the corner dissolves. The visual cortex throws out the hallucinated intruder and renders a new model. A rumpled gray jacket hanging over the back of a chair. A pair of jeans discarded on the seat. Nothing in the physical space moved. The fabric did not change shape. The only thing that shifted was the internal projection. The brain stopped simulating a threat and started simulating furniture. We never truly touched the outside world. We only ever wander through a bespoke gallery of our own creation, built in absolute darkness, continually repainted by the flashes of light that manage to leak inside. Reality is just the hallucination we all happen to agree on. If this changed how you see your own body, subscribe, there is far more hidden inside you that we have not explored yet. A like and a comment genuinely help this channel reach more curious minds, and that support is what makes it possible to keep producing these documentaries. Tell us in the comments what we should explore next.